Hello. Oh my god. I want to do a little Cancer season check-in because I don't know how y'all are doing, but I've just been slapped in the face with a lot. Oh. Hey, baby. Hi. And it centers around how like emotions and projections just rule so much rule so much in my life, and they're the biggest teachers and the biggest learners. They're the biggest teachers that I can learn from, but it's always really humbling, and I'm still learning to navigate them and understand them and how to recognize when I'm in one and pull myself back into like a state of grounding and reality, because they kind of just creep up on you. Like they kind of just, like, for example, I had been seeing this, I need to put oil in my hair. I'd been seeing this, I'd been feeling this frustration, and it like kind of bubble up inside of me. And I think part of it, there's a grain of, there has to be a grain of truth in it, otherwise it wouldn't be here. But I also just found myself recently being like, oh wait, no, you're just projecting this outside of you because of your own relationship to this dynamic. And it has to do with like frustration and then easing into compassion. And essentially what I was becoming frustrated by was this apparent presence of like the expectation of relationships to always be like this perfect balanced thing that's like, I don't know, I guess just the expectations of what relationships look like and what like give and take look like and what the reality of being a person can just be sometimes. And I saw it in like little posts that were made of like these two posts that stuck out to me that really spoke to, I think, what was like the greater truth that is inside of me, and that it is that I believe that in order to relate to people and like in order to form a connection with somebody, like we're going to be burdens to one another. We're going to be impositions to our friends and to our families, and we should be that, because when you're asking for help, you're telling people, I need you, and that's what this request is that I am in need. I need to receive something from you, and I'm vulnerable. And whatever further nuance and intricacies that leads into it is unique to the situation, whatever. But I guess I saw those and I was going, yeah, like being a burden, being in a position to people, asking for help, like, you know, calling people up out of the blue and just being like, I need a vent, you free? And like people are well within their rights to be like, no, I'm not free, whatever. Like boundaries, emotional availability, navigate it, awesome, cool. But then I've also been confronted with friendships in my life and people in my life like feeling the need to apologize for what I view as just being a person, and like taking up the necessary space that people need sometimes when they're absolutely going fucking through it. And that like relationships, to me it feels obvious, and I guess that's why I feel a little bit of conflict and confusion around these like elusive ideas of like, wait, this isn't how everyone thinks, and this isn't what is programmed inside everyone. And like people are insecure because this isn't how they understand relationships to be, is that like relationships are always going to be growing and morphing and changing. And if you're choosing for somebody to be in your life, and if you're choosing to like partner with them and like be their friend or be their partner, or you're accepting them as your family member, like it's going to look different all the time. And people are going to frustrate each other, and they're going to be angry, and you're going to like look at people and be like, what the fuck are you doing? But because you love them, you'll hold space for them to be a human being. Because also, if you have the right boundaries, like somebody being who they are, if they're just being, and if they're not being, like if this person isn't, you know, like on that other end of the spectrum of being like truly harmful and like abusive, and you know, we're not talking about those things, we're just talking about nuanced everyday relationships. If the person's just being a human being, they're going to be flawed, and they're gonna make mistakes, and they're gonna be upset, and they're gonna be in the same problem time after time after time, and like they're gonna, you know, you're just gonna be a person. And also life is just gonna throw shit at you to when you break down to the point of your life around you is just a hurricane and a tornado and a tsunami and a volcano and a flood, and your life just looks like that, and you cannot for the life of you find any way to create space for yourself to process that. So you go to a friend or you go to a counselor, and you're just like, and your friend holds that space for you to just let it out. And that might happen time after time after time, and whatever, that's not what I need to talk about. But like, I just found some of my friends apologizing for our relationship dynamic looking unbalanced, or looking like they need to talk about themselves and their problems a lot, and I'm holding that space for them a lot, and so our relationship might look imbalanced, and so they're apologizing for that. And it's happened on more than one occasion, and I know that it can happen because of a variety of things, but it also kind of just breaks my heart that like that happens and that exists. And in turn, when I see stuff on social media and like voices that speak as like that like speak to this, sorry, like that are speaking to this like need of awareness of like, hey, like we do all realize that like we're supposed to be, that relationships aren't perfect. I'm like, wait, that needs to be a conversation that needs to be had. Wait, you feel like you need to apologize for taking up space? Like, wait, why is this all happening? That's where I've been, and I've been like, what the fuck? Why is this a thing? And then I've been bubbling up this frustration inside of me at this apparent intolerance for discomfort in the world. Like, at this, like, okay, there is like a general social discourse that like apparently people buy into, that like they're not allowed to take up space, and that like it's something that they should be overwhelmingly grateful for, that they should be allowed the space to be a human being. And like, I don't know. The point is that like I've been experiencing things in my life, and I'm like, okay, I need to like interact with that as like the thing of like just reassuring my friend that like this is fine, and like whatever. I'm like, I believe this thing, I don't believe you need to be doing this, and I believe that this is all fine, so I'm going to tell you that it's fine, and that's going to be our reality. But I've also just found myself like kind of building this idea or this projection of what this must mean for something existing in society. And then there's also just been this frustration and intolerance growing within me around these ideas of like, wait, people are intolerant about humanity, and people are intolerant of people being in need and being emotional and struggling and like finding it hard to connect with themselves and needing space to connect with themselves. And there's just been this like mounting frustration that I've had with perceived society and the idea of this societal imbalance, which it may exist, it may not. I've had stuff I've had the mirror of it in social media, and I've had the mirror of it in life, so like whatever, and I've handled them in the way that I can. But anyway, the point is, after I've been talking for fucking 10 minutes, the point is, I caught myself this morning in this frustration, and like just spinning in it, just spinning in this frustration of like, how could people be so intolerant of need? How could people be so intolerant of humanity? How could people be so uncomfortable with holding the like imperfections and like the flawed nature of a human being? And I started to notice like a really strong attachment to this frustration and a really strong identification with this frustration. But then there's like willingness to project it at society. And then I started to see myself in what I was doing, and I was going, wait a minute. There's a part of me that's frustrated with myself for this same reason. And I really quickly identified what it was. It's like, I've just had a big Gemini season of just like doing a lot of shit. And I fell back into my routine of just like doing a lot of shit during the day, and then coming back and being like, okay, eat, do things, and then go on your phone. Absolutely zonk out because you are overwhelmed and tired. And that's a coping strategy that, unfortunately, we have. Did I put any of that in my hair? Or did I just like rub it into my hands? I think I put it into my hair. Honestly, I have no idea. I won't. And I think as that compounds over time, the impact of what like tuning out with yourself looks like starts to mirror in your world. Like I start to like realize that I'm spending a lot of time on my phone, and I'm not really connected to my creativity, and I'm feeling more and more exhausted, and I'm feeling more and more in disconnection with myself, and like my dialogue with myself, and my spiritual practices, and like my creative practices. And like then I start to be frustrated at like the fact that I'm blocked in so many areas, and then I start to be frustrated that I'm not changing, and I start to be frustrated at me being a human person that has been perfect, and that is in a state of need, and that is not doing anything about it, and can't hold myself in that state of need because of my intolerance. And it was kind of just a big slap in the face of how easy it is to be such a hypocrite, and to be such a, I don't know, like just for, like, yeah, just noticing how hypocritical I am in my life. And because of my penchant for just falling into projection, and how easily it happens, and how detrimental it is to healing, and to like facing my problems, and to finding compassion with myself again, and in turn and finding compassion for others, and like on a larger scale, like just collective humanity in general. And yeah, it kind of just slapped me on the face, and I was like, oh my god, Cancer season. Because if I know anything, is that like water rules projection and delusion. And that's also something that's been coming up a lot, is how, I think I've spoken about this before, but just how delusional life is. And I guess that's just one example of just like what I've been in. But I guess something else that's been going in my head is honesty. And it's always kind of floating in my head, but what I've been realizing lately is that in the past couple of years, I guess I started out finding it fun to be like a little bit inflammatory with playing with the idea of honesty, because I think honesty is something that a lot of people find a lot of security and safety in. And you know, we try to go by morals and virtues and values to like guide us in life, to be a good person, to be a safe person. And there's a part of me that's like, yes, true, good. That's there is part of me that is led by that. But then, like I said, there's this part of me that also, and it started probably a couple years ago. I think I just realized how much lying was fun for me and like humor. And I mean this is the most innocent thing of just like when someone says something, or if you say something obtuse, just being like, and I've always said that. Like, that's a lie. Like, sometimes it's just, my humor at least is just being obtuse. And if we want to get to like the nitty gritty of like honesty, speaking a false word is dishonest and it's a lie. And I think that's just very black and white for me. But people get really like clammed up about truth and dishonesty and lying. And so it's funny to just to be like, I lie all the time, and then see people's reaction to it, because they often are like, what the fuck? And it's kind of just funny to be a shit stirrer. In conclusion, being a bit of a shit stirrer is funny to me. And take with that what you will. That's how I have fun with life. But it's been cool. I've been calling it into question like a deeper sense lately, because I've also just noticed that in going with this acceptance of emotion being this delusional, chaotic, immoral, maybe not immoral, but it's not, the chaos of the feminine is not supposed to be moral. It's not supposed to be right or wrong. It's not supposed to be anything than what it is. It's not supposed to be justifiable. It's not supposed to be able to be understood by pragmatic and logical reasoning. Like, that's all the masculine realm, and that's not what feminine is supposed to be. So I've been coming into the awareness and like allowing myself more and more to be somebody that is at times led by my emotion and how I'm feeling in the moment. And I've often just speak with how I'm feeling. I often like will talk, and my words will be colored by emotion. It will be colored by the emotion of whatever I'm in at the moment, and whatever emotion the person that I'm talking to is bringing out in me. And I've started to realize that there are just so many opportunities that dishonesty falls into when I'm speaking from that place. Like, if I'm telling a story, I guess I question like where do we draw the line with dishonesty and truthfulness? Like, because sometimes you can be telling a story and you recount it and you might miss a detail, or like you might tell a sequence of events in the wrong way, or like because you've grown and developed like perspective and understanding and maybe compassion or judgment and reasoning around a scenario. If you're retelling a story, you might not be telling it from the perspective of like the age that you were when it first happened to you. And it's like, I guess I'm calling into question like all of these rigid expectations we have of honesty, and how fragile it really is when you consider what it is to be a person, and to be a person that feels, and to be a person that grows and develops. And like, the idea that we just, I've said for a very long time that we just pick our delusion, and oftentimes that looks like emotions. And I think maybe it gives more understanding when people say, when you're making decisions, when you're trying to like make a decision, like you try to make it from like a peaceful place. Like you try to make a decision from a non-heightened emotional state, because your thoughts, if you are in tune with your emotions, they will be colored by your emotional being. If you're happy, you will see things like with a more positive attitude. You'll see things brighter. You'll see the glass half full, and and if you're sad, you'll see the glass half empty. Like, all of those things are true. And so it's, well, like, maybe true is the wrong word, but I guess the phrase like pick your delusion, it really comes into center focus when I start to understand when I start to question how honest I am as a person, if I am somebody that is constantly fluctuating in emotion and constantly fluctuating in like my mood and my feeling about certain things and like my choices and where my life goes, and I find myself like kind of relaxing into it a little bit more, the more that I'm kind of just like, the more that I release this kind of like attachment to honesty being this thing that like, if I'm honest, then I am a good person, then I am a safe person. And like, maybe it's just like the claw grip, because there is like this idea of like, yes, like if you are honest, if you're transparent, if you aim to tell the truth, that does make you a safer person. But maybe it is my own like Virgo, rigid, perfectionistic thing of just like, if you claim to be this, then you must be it all the time. And the more that I'm living, the more that I'm understanding that like, I am nothing. I am nothing but inconsistent in who I am. But within that is the consistency. So this is getting really like blah, 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 blah. But pretty much honesty has just been in my head when I'm thinking about this inherent like flaw that it is to be a person that falls into the state of emotion and projection, and how much of that actually means anything to me when I consider who I am and how I am and how I judge myself. And I don't know, it's felt big because it's felt very relaxing. Because I think the part of me that feels very playful with the whole honesty being like, where do we draw the line? I felt more secure in my relationship with honesty the minute I started questioning how honest I am as a person. And the minute that I started admitting, the minute that I started to feel comfortable with admitting like, no, I actually lie a lot, and I lie in my humor. And I used to lie a lot to get myself out of things. And I started to feel more accountable and more responsible with myself when I started acknowledging where in my life I lied and then started working on them. And I don't know, the more of my dishonesty that I accepted and then tried to work on, the more secure I felt in the fact that I try to be an honest person. And then the more of myself that I just allowed to be, that I allowed as, the more that I accepted that I can't be honest even if I try my hardest, because of the inherent nature of a human being to be emotional and illogical and present and ever changing. The more that I'm feeling like, oh, okay, it's releasing this kind of perfectionism in me, I suppose, if that makes sense. And I'm growing more compassion for myself in that and in my flaws. And in turn, growing more compassion for people around me. So I've been learning a lot. And it feels good. And I feel very overwhelmed, which I also think is good, because I like feeling overwhelmed with reality. And that may not make sense. Like, I don't want to feel overwhelmed in life 24/7 because I'm going through a crisis. But I like things hitting me and going, oh my God, even if it's the same thing over and over again. You know? Like, because like, I think projection is something that I'm constantly coming in and out of, and like seeing myself do it and then getting lost in it and not seeing myself doing it and becoming conscious and unconscious and unconscious and like conscious again. And I don't want that cycle to ever stop. So I also feel a little bit proud of myself in this state of being like, oh my God, I'm here again. That's a good thing, because it means I'm still moving, and it means I'm still growing. And yeah, I feel good about that, you know. I feel good about learning, and I feel good feeling like a baby again. And maybe that's how it is to you too. Or like, maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe that's a challenge if you're kind of sitting in a space where you're like, I already knew this. Like, maybe consider that there's something that you don't know, and maybe you need to go through a cycle, or I don't know. I don't want to tell you what to do. Maybe you're fine. Maybe you're actually absolutely fine and you don't need to think about anything. But yeah, I don't know. I say this because Cancer is the sign of like baby emotion. It's the first sign that encounters emotion and the world of water and the world of feeling and perceiving the world in your feelings, and how tricky that is, and how much of a delusion it all is, and how easily it can be swept up, and how much of it just colors your world without you even knowing. And that it's a delicate thing, and it's so easy to get stuck in, and it's so easy to get like really like, I don't know, it's just so easy to start projecting yourself into the outside world, and it's so easy to relinquish your responsibility of those feelings onto the greater world outside of you, and just to go, it's a problem with everything else and I don't have control over that, so I don't know how to fix it. So I'm just going to continue being, and I'm just going to continue having gripes and anger and hating the things that are outside of me, and that's fine. But I'm always thankful for the part of me that starts to understand how I'm feeling and be like, why are you getting so irate about this thing? I don't want to be irate. I don't want to be frustrated. I don't want to be a person that's like tight and like, I want to relax. How am I going to relax? How am I going to surrender? How am I going to be compassionate? Because I don't like this like that I'm feeling towards life at the moment. And if it's anything, it's something in me. And like, it very may well be something out in the world. Maybe there are people that walk around being like, if you have problems as my friend, I don't give a shit because I'm protecting my peace, so don't contact me. Maybe there are people that walk around like that, but I trust that one day something will hit them and they'll grow. And I leave it at that. So I'm not going to discount like I'm not going to discount it, but I'm just going to be like real about what's in my control, and what's in my control is where that frustration's coming from, which is me, because I'm doing it to myself. Anyway, I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I'm just having a little Cancer season check-in and calling you to, maybe if any of this makes sense, if you feel yourself in any part of this, maybe it'll kind of shed light on what you might be going through, or like whatever Cancer season's trying to teach you, or even if it's just to teach you to like relax. Because that's what led me to have this realization, was just like, man, I'm being irritable. And like, for sure, I'm in my luteal phase, so I'm going to be a bit more hypercritical, and I'm going to be a little bit more like pissed off. But I'm striving to come back to peace as much as I can. And maybe that is also something, maybe that's the only takeaway you have. Who knows? But I've been yapping for like almost half an hour now, so I'm gonna go. And yeah, I hope you find this lightness too. And thank you for listening, and thank you for, probably gonna go give my bunny some attention, because I was like really giving her some attention, and then I started talking and she's like, why don't you stop cuddling me to start talking to a camera? What's going on there? So I'm probably gonna do that. But I hope this feeling of like lightness and forgiveness and compassion that I'm feeling in my body right now is found. Like, I hope you receive that, and I hope like you, whatever, in however that needs to come about you, I hope you have the tolerance and the compassion for yourself to get through that, and to find yourself here as well, because it's a nice place. It's good to be. Yeah, thank you for listening. good luck and a good time.